Do you see any more signs of hope within the administration within the UK wide rather than Northern Ireland on sustainable development? Do you see no difference at all with that?
Oh no, certainly I see, particularly in the devolved administrations, I mean Wales has a statutory duty on sustainable development, the Welsh Assembly. The Scottish Executive, of course, has more powers than either Wales or Northern Ireland. But for example, the Scottish Nationalist Party leader, okay, there's a bit of rhetoric and so on, Alex Salmond, he wants Scotland to be the wind energy Saudi Arabia. I mean, they are investing heavily in moving out of fossil fuels and investing upfront in terms of investing in wind and wave and biomass and so on. And I often think in my darker moments even that if Northern Ireland could just follow the lead of Scotland, we'd be doing very well here. So I think there are things developing and moving in the UK, not least, and credit where credit's due, the world-breaking introduction of a climate change bill in 2008, of which Northern Ireland is part of that, even though we had a minister, and Sammy Wilson, who's a well-known climate change skeptic, even as Minister for the Environment, he was committed under the UK legislation to pony up Northern Ireland's commitments to that. So I think there is a lot of innovation going on. I think in bodies such as the Sustainable Development Commission that the UK government had set up a few years ago, with luminaries such as Jonathan Porritt, very well-known environmental advising, being a critical friend of the government, I think has gently pushed the administration on. But the ship of state, to use that well-worn metaphor, is a very slow beast to change. And really my interest is in recognising that one of the first imperatives of any state, absent of security, which of course has dominated Northern Ireland, that security imperative, every state there's an issue around national security, but absent of that, the second most important imperative of any state is economic development. And I think once you begin to see the opportunities of attaching a sustainable economy to that, it opens up tremendous possibilities. And I think in part it has to do with a generation of politicians in Northern Ireland that effectively have made the peace, but they are stuck in a economic mindset that is extremely outmoded and outdated, partly because they've not had to have the skills or to debate issues of economics. It was always about the constitutional question. So my faith, such as it is in the orthodox parties that exist here, are not in this generation of politicians, but the next one.
So even if there was some pull from the UK to develop a more sophisticated sustainable development policy, as there is within the Republic of Ireland from the EU, pulling them in that direction, that wouldn't really be useful to you because you think the economic view in the UK is no different and more useful than it is in Northern Ireland.
Well, I think it's slightly I think it's slightly better in the UK than it is here. I mean, certainly if you look at the Brown administration and at least rhetorical commitments to developing a green economy. There is a stronger commitment by the trade unions, for example, in the UK for climate change action and jobs in a green economy. There's much more awareness and mobilisation around the greening of the economy, including from Federation of British Industry. So you've got industry, environmentalists, trade union, and elements of the government. But unfortunately, even in the UK, and I'll say it again, is that most governments are still stuck in a model of economic growth orientation, whereby essentially, and it is true, that as we've seen now, when economic growth stops, the whole thing collapses. Unemployment goes up, you see a lot of problems, public debt increases. And I think for me, yes, that is absolutely appalling, and there's a lot of suffering out there. But in this, there's an opportunity, as there was in America in the 1930s, echoing the Green New Deal of Roosevelt, to actually remake the system. But to paraphrase the famous or infamous Monty Python sketch about the dead parrot, the economic model that has been resuscitated is dead. It's a cadaver. It died when the Lehman Brothers went bust in August 2008. Why on earth do we want to get back there? And unfortunately, there is no leadership being given on inspiring and looking at even tentative, experimental new ways of doing business. We're going to have to find a new way of making our way in the world. That is certainly my belief. And just to finish on the point, up there now with death and taxes is the inevitable transition to a low carbon economy. There's no question about it. We have to get off fossil fuels. So why not get first leader advantage, particularly in Northern Ireland, where we are extremely vulnerable to foreign sources of change. I mean, most of our gas is coming from places like Norway and even more unstable places like Russia, and we're the end of the pipeline.
Yes.
I mean, really, if the things happen further up the pipeline as they did in 2007 and more recently between the Ukraine and Russia, because Ukraine is the major distribution point for natural gas, we stand the danger of either going cold by not getting the gas, or having to pay extremely high prices for it. Yet we have abundant wave and wind and so on. Let's get into that now.
Now, so the one hope you would see on the horizon would be the Green New Deal, and I must say that one of the encouraging parts of that Green New Deal is that the Northern Ireland Farmers Union has bought into it, and that's really a very helpful partner to have. And I think there seems to be more working with the Farmers Union here than there is in the environmental community in the South.
Yes, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, the Ulster Farmers Union has certainly grasped the advantages of moving into whether it's green tourism, whether it's biofuels for wood chip or willow and so on, and certainly to look at the industry of agriculture through the lens of sustainability opens up a new business model almost for many farmers. So certainly they've been important given the strength of the farming lobby in Northern Ireland. But it must be remembered from a brutal economic point of view, more of Northern Ireland GDP and jobs is in the tourism sector than there would be in the farming sector. The farming sector just has a disproportionate lobbying power, particularly over the DUP. And in fact, the farming, while on the one hand the farming lobby has been tentatively welcoming of aspects of the Green New Deal, they've also then, in my view, been regressive in, for example, pushing for a rescinding of a planning policy statement, PPS, which happened recently. But that's politics for you. You're not going to get everything all the time. It's about compromise. So I think we're beginning to see, whether you look at the CBI, Confederation of British Industry, the Trade Union, or the Ulster Farmers Union, or indeed environmentalists, there's the beginnings of a platform, of a coalition, of a new model based around localized, based around green economy, based around a low carbon way forward. But again, we are at the beginning of this stage. What we're missing, so you have all these social partners signed up tentatively, or more than tentatively for a lot of them, signed up to this new programme, but we're not getting the response from the executive. There's a blockage, partly to do with the dysfunctionality, which has nothing to do with the economy. It's got to do with issues between the DUP, Sinn Féin, and the way a rather dysfunctional political system actually works.
Well, John, we're going to rely on you over the next couple of years to keep an eye on that and hopefully move them along, as we need you to do that. Would you please?
More than happy to keep their feet to the fire, Bob.
Great. Thanks, John, for talking with us today.
Thank you.
Cheers.